For me, having fun in cars is a very serious business, which is why up to now I've been, let's call it, skeptical about the great EV revolution. But today we've come to California, where Hyundai are determined to prove to me that the future of driving fun, even without V12 or V8 engines, is safe in their hands. This car is the RN24. And I've got to say, this could be a very good future for us all.
So what exactly is this deranged and exposed rally car come drift monster? Well, that pretty much sums it up. The RN24 is Hyundai's latest rolling lab and pairs the Ioniq 5N's twin motors with a WRC-style chassis and has been built to evaluate how to evolve electric drivers' cars for real enthusiasts, something Hyundai seem hell-bent on doing. Thankfully, their approach doesn't involve a single mention of adding ever more straight-line performance. Instead, the RN24 focuses on lightweighting, shrinking the footprint of future N models, and a rally-inspired hydraulic handbrake that isn't a hydraulic handbrake at all. Instead, the E-handbrake lever sends a signal to the E-motor to lock the rear axle. What an inspired use of EV tech. And the signs are that this stuff will genuinely make it onto future models. History tells us as much. So before more smoke and fury, here's some proof the RN24 holds real clues to future N models.
So the reason the RN24 is significant is because Hyundai have a really good track record of using these rolling laboratories to showcase future technologies, to test them out. And although that normally sounds like a bit of spin, in their case, it's true. So in 2022, we saw the RN22e. We even drove that car on Top Gear's YouTube channel. And it showed us the NE shift, this virtual dual clutch box, if you like, which is now in this car, the i5N.
EVs do everything for you, and I find that boring. This car, well, I've already cocked up in it. You just saw me hit the rev limiter. I was a bit slow downshifting just there. This might be the most interactive EV I've driven. I might have to shut up now and concentrate.
Most people were pretty skeptical about this E-shift technology, but one by one they've become believers. This is my first time in an i5N, and now, I guess, it's my turn. Annoyingly, it works really well. The fake noise too. The box is more responsive than plenty of real paddle shift systems, and the noise better than plenty of digitally enhanced ICE cars too.
These things work, and they were showcased in the RN22, so now we've got the 24. And we should be even more interested in what they're investigating with that car, because they're all the things that really matter. Lightweighting, shrinking the technology, making the cars smaller and more agile, and then we've got the fun hydraulic handbrake as well.
That the i5N is great fun is not news, but the fact that the N guys and girls feel there's a lot more to come is extremely heartening. Okay, it's time, with about 40 Hyundai staff watching. I hope this thing is the big step on that they claim. A giant car park with cones marking out a sort of Gymkhana course isn't exactly the Nordschleifer, but it's a good place to get to know the RN24 and in the spirit of its Gymkhana brief.
650 horsepower and a hydraulic handbrake effectively. Well, the acceleration is, as you'd expect, huge. I'm in drift mode, and it definitely does that. Let's try the bar. Yes, it works. The bar's weird because there's no mechanical connection, so it's just sort of a springy bar. But you can feel that agility, and you can do the reverse You could do the reverse entry. Yes.
So the RN24 is a bit of a riot. Who would have guessed? But let's take a look at the car in closer detail before I give you yet more incredible insight into the driving experience.
Okay, so I know what you're thinking. Where on earth did they save the weight with this car? Well, yeah, it's got no body, no doors, no windscreen, no nothing. But there is some really cool details on this, apart from the fact it looks like, to me, a Metro 6R4 without any bodywork. They've got the weight down from getting on for 2.2 tons down to 1,880 kilos, so this is still not a lightweight car, but it's lighter, it's a step in the right direction. Also, shorter wheelbase. It has the same battery pack as an i5N, but they've managed to repackage it effectively. So the wheelbase is down to 2660 millimeters from 3 meters. So that agility should come from the shorter wheelbase. It's got lots of cool trick stuff. So this is not quite the WRC roll cage, but it's basically WRC spec changed to make these cool shapes. So you've got the outline of the car, and it's got the dampers from the rally car as well. They're sort of in tarmac spec, probably a little bit softer at the moment than you would in the tarmac car and a little bit higher riding. So you've got that weight transfer, which is important because this is effectively a Gymkhana car.
The RN24 is just a little longer than the i20 NWRC car, and as well as the rally cage and dampers, it features the rear ELSD as seen in the i5N, plus a new mechanical LSD for the front axle. The E-Shift gearbox isn't currently fitted to the RN24, but it has additional side speakers, and the hollow rear wheel arches act as resonators to increase volume and depth. It also has the same steering ratio as the WRC car, and the power distribution, which we'll talk about in a moment, is directly derived from Hyundai's mega success on the stage.
Okay, so let's jump in. The wheel has got a lot of stuff going on, and there are many modes. But effectively, I have, if you want to come around here, I've got on the left is a power mode. So effectively it goes from mode 1 up to mode 5. 5 is maximum power. Once I'm in mode 5, these lights up here will light up green, and that will give me a 10-second boost. So when I'm full throttle, they will count down for that extra boost of power. Over here, I have the driving modes. So that is effectively the balance. So snow is pretty much locked in 50-50 front to rear. Then you go up to gravel, a bit more to the rear. They're not fixed torque split, so it will intelligently move it around. But as you go up, you're putting more bias to the rear. So tarmac is what I would use on the circuit, but then for the Gymkhana, you can start in tarmac and go up to N drift, and then in N drift plus, which is very rear drive. And actually, when you've got this thing to play with, you probably don't need N drift plus mode. What else have I got? Regen. So there is 3 modes, starts at 1, 2, and 3. 3 is very heavy on the regen. 2 is about right, I think. And then acceleration. So this is another toggle switch, and it effectively does your throttle map. So 1 is quite lazy, 2 is, I think, probably the most linear, and then 3 is pretty jumpy. Again, so much power and so much progression, you don't really need that. The real trick bit is this, the E handbrake. So it's a strange thing. Hydraulic handbrakes are probably the greatest invention in the world, because effectively they allow you to back a car in, to avoid any understeer in a rally car. You basically spot the corner, turn, pull the handbrake, and it just allows you to immediately get the car rotated. And then with all this power, it's all about the throttle. So I don't expect to be too busy on this, but it just gives you more options. Normally they have quite a mechanical feel. This doesn't. Obviously it's a switch, but you just pull it and it feels slightly weird and loose. The environment is obviously nuts. There is nothing around us. The view is fantastic. Driving position is great. And then down here, I actually have the noise. So if I press this button, there you go. You get the impression. And there's a road button for road driving. No one's driving this thing on the road. So yeah, that's a little walk around of what we have, effectively a mashup between rally car and i5N. So the short wheelbase, yeah, you can certainly feel it through the slalom. Does it feel lighter? Yes, I think it does. It feels really short. There's no ABS, no traction control. For me, the coolest thing about this car is that it exists at all. They are very, very committed, I have to say, to just ensuring that driving fun is not a thing of the past. And so trying out all these really interesting technologies is great, and they genuinely are talking about this handbrake as being something they want to do for production cars, which is sort of unbelievable, isn't it? But also really, really cool. There is no problem with the power or the adjustability. The dampers are exactly as the rally car has their Sachs dampers. And the car just feels extremely easy to drive. The noise is annoyingly effective. It feels fun, and there's some mechanical feel to the car, which is cool. The steering is lovely. The sense of agility, it's almost like rear wheel steering with this short wheelbase. And there's just so much fun to be had messing around with it.
Well, 650 horse WRC aping car with locking diffs front and rear and a bar to lock the rear axle is rather fun. But there is more to it than that. The lower mass is tangible in everything this car does, and it feels so alert and nimble compared to the already very good Ioniq 5. With just 20% battery remaining, we were allowed a few very wet and slower than ideal laps of Sonoma Raceway to see if those qualities shine through the gloom and hint at the potential in a mildly more real-world environment.
Okay, so now we're on track and I can start to feel some of those differences that on the Gymkhana area it's very difficult to do so. So I was in N drift mode there because it gave me enough rear bias to feel really nice and pointy, but not so much that it was out of control. The N drift plus mode was insane. And so now I'm in tarmac mode, and the shift between the front and rear is much less extreme, I guess, but it still will power oversteer. But it's a really nice, it's not a fixed balance, it moves front to rear, but it's got that sort of the new Yaris sort of feel to it. So when you get on the power, there's definitely more going to the rear, and if I click it up here to N drift, then that sensation immediately becomes more. To be honest, on a soaking wet track, I don't know with like 2 laps, because effectively we're out of battery. I'm not going to find out much other than the very basic stuff, which is it does feel much lighter, much more agile than even the i5M, which is we know pretty much the benchmark electric car. Good throttle response, bit of understeer on the way in, but then as soon as I'm on the power, it's transitions to oversteer, so pretty nice actually.
Sadly, time constraints and the old EV limitations of battery life mean our track time isn't fully illuminating. But the RN24 has done enough. It is the tyre-wrecking embodiment of Hyundai's continued program to bring driving fun to EVs in surprising and refreshing ways. introducing all the old stuff we love into a new sort of performance car. Some of it is synthesized, like the noise and gear shifts, but much of it is authentic and the direct result of striving to cut weight, shrink wrap the technology and exploit it in cool ways. I've not been converted to EV evangelist, but like Hyundai's Rolling Lab program, I'm a work in progress, and things are looking up.